Hello students, let us see one of the important topic in system programming operating system, that is regarding the mutual exclusion. Today let us see the hardware approach for the mutual exclusion. First of all, let us revise the requirements for the mutual exclusion. What is basically the mutual exclusion? Whenever there is a common resource and more than one process wants to operate on that common resource, then whenever process 1 is using that resource 1 or the common resource, the other process should not be allowed to use the same resource. That means whenever process 1, suppose it is using the resource 1, then the section of the code in which that process 1 is working for the resource 1 is called as a critical section of the code. Whenever one process is in its critical section of the code for a common resource, the other process should not be allowed to enter in its critical section of the code for the same resource. Okay, so suppose resource 1 is common, which is commonly required by the two processes. But if process 1 is working on the resource 1, then process 2 should be inferred from using the resource 1. That means if process 1 is working in its code, critical section of the code for resource 1, process 2 should not be allowed to enter into its critical section of the code for serving or for using the resource 1. Okay, so we say that if process 1 is working on the resource 1, process 2 is getting excluded from the use of the resource 1, and this concept is called as a mutual exclusion. So let us see what are the requirements of the mutual exclusion. That means if we want to implement mutual exclusion, that means if there is a printer and the two processes wants to use the printer P1 and P2, they are the two processes which wants to use the printer. Then suppose P1 is working on the printer, then P2 should not be allowed to use the printer at the same time. Okay. So if P1 is using the printer, we will say that P1 is in its critical section of the code for the printer resource. Then P2 should not be allowed to go into its critical section of the code for using the printer resource. So what are the requirements for the mutual exclusion? First thing is we should not be dependent on the OS to implement this concept of critical section of the code. So we should not rely on OS, that OS will take care of everything. Mutual exclusion must be enforced. Okay, only one process at a time in its critical section among all processes that have the critical section for the same resource or shared object. That means you should allow only one process to enter into its CS for the printer resource, and you should not allow other processes to enter into their critical section for the same printer resource. So see here, the resource can be shared by the processes or some common object or some common variable in the memory or some kind of data structure that can also be shared by the processes. So the thing is, mutual exclusion must be enforced, means we should not rely on the OS to implement the mutual exclusion. Then a process that halts in its non-CS must do without inferring with the other process. That means if one process has been out of its critical section, then it should not infer the other process. It should not change the values or it should not change the contexts of the other processes. A process requiring access to critical section may not be denied or delayed indefinitely. So we know that what is starvation. Starvation is simply suppose process P2 is waiting for some kind of printer resource which is resource 1 and which has already been engaged by process 1. In that case, process 2 has to wait. But the thing is, the process 2 should not wait indefinitely. It should not be delayed indefinitely. So while implementing mutual exclusion, we have to take care of this particular requirement, right? When no process is in its critical section, any process that requests to enter in its critical section must be permitted without any delay. Okay, so as simple as it is written, no assumptions are made. So whenever this mutual exclusion algorithm is implemented, there should not be any assumptions about the relative speeds of the processes and the total number of other processes. So there should be the complete fairness. Okay, so fairness, as we know, it is one of the important thing for the mutual exclusion. So whenever the mutual exclusion algorithm is implemented, there should not be any assumption regarding the relative speed of the processes. Which process will be doing its job in a smaller time and the other will be requiring more time to execute, and the total number of processes All these things are unimportant. Then the next thing is process remains in its critical section for a finite time only. That means if process 1 is in its critical section for serving for using the resource 1, then it should come out of that critical section which is using resource 1, okay, in a finite time. It should not happen that the process 1 is holding that printer for indefinite time. Okay, so that is the meaning of the last statement. Process remains in its critical section for a finite time only, right? So this is the diagram which is explaining you the concept of the mutual exclusion. Resource 1, which may be a printer which is being used by process 1, and at that time process 2 also requires resource 1 or a printer, but it has to wait because process 1 is in its critical section of the code. So whenever it will come out of that critical section of the code for the resource 1, process 1, whenever it will come out of that CS for the resource 1, then only process 2 will be allowed the access of resource 1. So these two processes are following the mutual exclusion. Okay, they are mutually collaborating for the use of the resource 1. Okay, in this mutual exclusion, there are different approaches to satisfy the requirements of the mutual exclusion, right? So for the mutual exclusion, it can be implemented by using the hardware, it can be implemented by using the software, by using the algorithms, etc. Okay, so what are the different approaches to satisfy the requirements of the mutual exclusion? The approaches are either you can leave the responsibility of performing this mutual exclusion directly with the processes that want to execute concurrently. That means P1 process 1 is saying that I want resource 1, P2 is also saying that I want a resource 1. Then you directly tell those processes, process 1 and process 2, do whatever you want, you take care of that resource. Okay, and depending on mutual collaboration, you access that resource. That means you are giving the responsibility of the mutual exclusion. Okay, you are giving the responsibility of the mutual exclusion to the processes that want to execute concurrently. This is one approach. The second approach is directly by using the machine instructions, and the second approach is on hardware level. Directly by using the machine instructions, the mutual exclusion can be achieved. Mutual exclusion is simply whenever one resource is getting used by one process, the other process should not be allowed to access the same resource. So that is called as mutual exclusion in very simple terms. And these are different approaches. Either you can tell the processes to take care of the mutual exclusion, or directly you can use the machine instructions. Okay, there are some kind of machine instructions which will get executed at the hardware level, like test and set instruction, the exchange instruction, which will be using the locks in order to satisfy the condition of the mutual exclusion. So at the hardware level, you will be taking care. Of course, you would be taking care. The processor will be taking care by executing those machine instructions that the common resource is being used by a single process at the given time. And whenever that single process is done with its job on that particular resource, that means it comes out of its critical section of the code for that particular resource, then the other process will gain the access of that resource. So one is by using the machine instructions, okay, by using the test and set instruction, by using the exchange instruction. All these instructions are indivisible instructions. Okay, by using these instructions, you can achieve the mutual exclusion. And the third approach is to provide the support in operating system only. That means there are some operating system APIs, okay, application programmer interfaces, or some of the system calls, okay, which will support this concept of mutual exclusion. Or there can be some facility in the programming language itself, whatever programming language you are using in order to write your application programs. See, your processes can be either the application programs or they can be the system programs, right? Your kernel is managing all the processes, means either it is managing the different threads from the application programs or the system programs. So the third approach is saying that you have to provide the support in operating system itself. There will be some of the operating system API calls, system calls, or there will be some facility provided in a programming language, right, which will be supporting the mutual exclusion. That means there can be some functions in programming language or the operating system calls which will be supporting the mutual exclusion. Okay, so on the broader level, these are the approaches. Either the processes will be taking care of mutual exclusion, or there will be the machine instructions for the mutual exclusion, or there will be some kind of operating system or the programming language, functions which will be taking care of the mutual exclusion. These are the broader categories. Now, these are the specific approaches to satisfy the requirements of mutual exclusion. Either there is a hardware approach or the software approach. Okay, support from the operating system or the programming language. You can use the monitors in order to implement mutual exclusion, or okay, mutual exclusion semaphore you can use, that is called as a mutex. Okay, all these things are the specific approaches to satisfy the requirements of mutual exclusion. So in the exam you can write in points about all these approaches. Okay, so first we will see the hardware approach. Hardware approach means actually by executing the instruction at the processor level, you can take care that whenever one resource is being shared, is being accessed by one of the process, then the other processes will not be allowed to access the same resource. They will be excluded. All processes will be mutually excluded. Okay, so in this case, in a hardware approach, simply there are some kind of instructions. Okay, many of the processors like Pentium processors, x86 versions of the processors, they provide some kind of instructions, and all those instructions are nothing but some kinds of functions in turn. They are the indivisible instructions. Okay, and those instructions are usually executed in one instruction cycle, and by using those instructions the care of mutual exclusion is taken. So what is a hardware approach? In the first thing, in the hardware approach, you have, again, there are different categories in the hardware approach of the mutual exclusion. Either you can achieve mutual exclusion by using interrupt disabling, or you can achieve mutual exclusion by using the instructions. So again, in the hardware approach of the mutual exclusion, there are two things to remember. You can achieve that mutual exclusion by using the hardware approach either by disabling the interrupts, or you can achieve the mutual exclusion by using the processor instructions. Okay, so what happens in interrupts disabling? So what is interrupt disabling? That we know that whenever there is a uniprocessor system, now what is the difference between a uniprocessor system and a multiprocessor system? In a uniprocessor system, there is only a single processor, and which is using different processes, or which is working on different processes. Now, working on different processes does not mean that that single processor or a uniprocessor is executing all those processes simultaneously, right? It simply means that it is executing all those concurrent processes in an interleaved manner. Okay, there is no overlapped execution. Okay, it simply means that suppose you have a single core CPU. In that case, if there are multiple processes which are being executed by your CPU, what your CPU will do? It will not do the concurrent execution of all those processes. What will be done is there will be the interleaved fashion of execution. That means if process 1 is done in 7 nanoseconds, after 7 nanoseconds it will take process 2. After more 7 nanoseconds, it will take process 3 in a round robin fashion. That depends on your kernel CPU scheduling algorithms, right? So in a uniprocessor system, what is meant by concurrency? Concurrency simply is nothing but your single processor is executing different processes in an interleaved manner. There is no overlapped execution. So whenever there is a uniprocessor system, okay, so how that mutual exclusion is guaranteed? It is guaranteed whenever you prevent the other processes, okay, by using the same resource, or whenever any process is working on a single resource or a common resource, then you prevent the other processes by using the same resource, or you prevent the original process which is working on that resource from being interrupted. Okay, very simple thing. In this hardware approach, we are discussing the disabling of the interrupt. See, this hardware approach of disabling the interrupt works well with your uniprocessor systems, right? In which there are no multiple processors, right? Then in this case, suppose resource 1 is being used by process 1. So what we will do, whenever resource 1 is allocated to the process 1, we will disable all the interrupts. And if the interrupts are disabled, then what will happen? None of the process can interrupt this process 1 now. So that is your hardware approach, okay, for the mutual exclusion. That is one of the hardware approach by using the disabling of interrupts. So it works only for the uniprocessor environments. Interrupt disabling is a process runs until it invokes an operating system service or until it is interrupted, usually. This is the usual scenario. That means what happens is if the process gains the access of some printer, then it will use that printer unless it is done with the job, with its job, or unless it is interrupted. So when it is interrupted, it has to leave that printer. This is a normal scenario. But what we will do is whenever process 1 gets the control of printer, then we will disable the interrupts so that particular process P1 will not get interrupted. Okay, disabling all the interrupts guarantees mutual exclusion. Okay, so the thing is, this disabling interrupt for achieving mutual exclusion will not work in a multiprocessor environment. Okay, the efficiency of the execution is degraded. Why it is degraded? Because you are having a uniprocessor system and you are saying that that uniprocessor is providing concurrency, or it is able to execute multiple processes at the same time, of course in an interleaved fashion. But then again what you are doing is whenever one process gets the access of a common resource, okay, one process gets the printer or gets a common resource, at that time you are disabling all the interrupts. You are saying other processes that you don't have to now interfere. Okay, so disabling the interrupts. Okay, so what is done is disabling the interrupt will degrade the processor performance. Its ability to interleave will be hampered. Okay, as critical section is not interrupted, it guarantees mutual exclusion. It's a very simple thing to understand what is the critical section of the code. The critical section of the code is simply whenever the process gains the control of the common resource, and if it is serving that common resource, it is set to enter the critical section of the code. And whenever the critical section of the code arrives, at that time all the interrupts are disabled. So that particular process can work with that single resource, common resource, and no other processes will interrupt it. So critical section of the code is simply the section of the code which is working on a common resource. And before entering into the critical section, we are simply disabling the interrupts. And after finishing the critical section of the code, that means the job which is to be done with that resource is the critical section of the code. After finishing the critical section of the code, we are again enabling the interrupts. And then there is a remainder of the code, the remaining code. So this is a pseudo code for achieving our mutual exclusion by using the hardware approach. The hardware approach in which the interrupts are disabled in order to achieve the mutual exclusion. That is one of the things. See, there are hardware approaches and the software approaches. There are the monitor programs, there are mutex, okay, for achieving mutual exclusion. But in a hardware approach, you have different approaches. In the hardware approach, either the mutual exclusion can be achieved by disabling the interrupts, or the mutual exclusion can be achieved by using the special kinds of instructions which are provided in a CPU. Right. So we will see the hardware approach. This is a hardware approach only. This is your hardware approach only. Hardware approach. Okay. For mutual exclusion. Okay. This is your hardware approach only. But this hardware approach is by using the special kind of machine instruction. Now the processor is going to provide you some kind of instructions, okay, which will be making sure that whenever the common resource is with one process, then other processes has to wait. Simply that. Okay, the other processes cannot access or gain the access of that resource simultaneously. Okay, so in this case, what is happening is the first instruction in this category, the special machine instructions, the first instruction is your test and set instruction. Okay, and the second instruction is the exchange instruction, right? So, what is test and set instruction? The test and set instruction, if you see, the test and set instruction is nothing but it is a instruction, single instruction actually, but behind that instruction there is a complete function. So what will happen is whenever test set instruction is executed, you will feel that you are writing a single instruction, but for that single instruction this complete pseudo code, this complete function will get executed. So whenever the test set instruction is getting executed, it will have one variable, integer I, and that integer I is similar to a lock. Now what is a lock? Simply whenever any process, suppose there is a process P1 and it is having a printer resource. So that printer resource is called as a R1 resource. And for a printer, there are two more processes waiting. P2 is waiting for it, and P3 is also waiting for it. That means whenever printer is being used by P1, at that time P2 and P3 should wait. That means all these processes should be mutually excluded for using that printer resource. So we have seen some hardware approaches, in which one more hardware approach is test and set instruction. So what we will do is, we will be defining some kind of variable. That can be the variable called as a lock variable or I variable or some kind of flag variable. So whenever P1 is using that flag variable, or whenever P1 is using that resource printer, at that time the flag will have a non-zero value. It will have a value of flag equals to 1. And whenever P2 and P3 will see the flag variable, they will see the value of the flag as 1 or some non-zero value. They will understand that that kind of flag, since it is non-zero, that particular resource is already in use by some process. Okay, so simply whenever any resource is with some process, or the process is said to be in its critical section of the code working on that particular resource, it has to set that particular flag, okay, a non-zero value. So the other processes will simply check that flag and they will understand that, oh, that resource is busy, right? So all this thing is done by a simple instruction, which is a test set instruction. Okay, so test set instruction is provided by the hardware. Okay, so what the test set instruction will do, the test set is a single instruction, but behind that instruction this complete subroutine will get executed. So in a test set instruction, there is some kind of argument provided in that particular test set function. So if that particular I value is 0, that means that flag value is 0, that means the resource is free. Then that flag value will be made 1 and the true will be returned by this test set instruction. If the test set instruction is returning true, the simple meaning of this to the process is the resource is free. If the test set instruction is returning false, the process will understand that the resource is busy, right? So what this test and set will do, it will test that flag. If that flag is 0, that means the resource is available. It will be returning true to the process and it will make it 1, so that the other processes will get that flag equals to 1 and they will understand that the resource is busy. Else, if that flag value is not 0 or the I value is not 0, then it means that the resource is busy. In that case, what will be returned? The false will be returned. So where all these things will be returned? These things will be returned to the process. And how they will be returned? The process has to use a test set instruction. Whenever the test set instruction is executed, this complete subroutine or the function will be executed. Now what you have to remember is the test set instruction is the atomic instruction, or it is indivisible instruction. Indivisible instruction means, or whatever is the code behind that test set, it is executed indivisibly. No one can interrupt whenever the test set instruction or its code is getting executed. Now most of these instructions like test set and swap instructions or exchange instructions are the instructions having one instruction cycle. We know one instruction cycle that consists of many machine cycle. But as we know, since they are designed to get executed in one instruction cycle, they cannot be interrupted. We know whenever the interrupt comes also in a normal processor, at that time also the instruction at the hand is getting always gets completed. So that's why all these test set instructions and the swap instructions are designed for execution in one instruction cycle. Okay, so this is a program for the mutual exclusion by using the hardware approach. Okay, this particular approach is nothing but by using the special instructions, and the type of the instruction in this case is a test set instruction. So in this case, suppose that we are entering into the process. So this is void P, and for entering into the process, what the main method has to do? See, this is a main code. Main method will be, or main function will be always the parent process, and it will give the child processes the time for the execution, or it will give birth to the child processes. So in this main, okay, first of all this bolt variable is set to 0. So since bolt variable is set to 0, bolt variable is protecting some resource. For example, bolt variable is protecting some common resource. Suppose it is a printer resource. So bolt is 0 means your printer is free. So whenever your execution of the program starts, at that time your printer is definitely free, and that's why the flag corresponding to your printer, that is a bolt variable, it becomes 0. It may be the integer bolt like that. Okay. So it's not given, only the some part of the pseudo code is given as a program here. So the printer is free, so the bolt variable is 0. Then your main process will begin other processes. Okay, processes will begin. Okay, and all those parent process will begin all the child processes P1, P2, P3 according to their availability. That means if P1 process is in its ready state and P2 is in its waiting state, okay, of course the P1 will get the chance to get served. So P1 will begin, or whatever process is ready, that will get started. So here the execution will begin for the processes, and for that there is a function provided by your OS, that is a pair begin. Okay, so in this case your process begins. So you have to come here whenever a process begins. Whenever a process begins, that function for the process will get executed. So it is having one kind of variable, and that variable is nothing but I. Okay. Then in this case, for the program for the mutual exclusion, you are simply declaring one variable called as a bolt. Then you are declaring one more variable which is a constant type of variable, because your number of processes for that particular application will be definitely constant, or as a programmer you'll be having the idea how many different processes are there in your program. So in this case your n variable will be a constant variable. Suppose you are having four processes, then n will be equal to 4. Now whenever the process is executed, this particular section will get executed. If you see in this process, there is one section which is called as a critical section, and the other section of the code which is called as a remainder section. The critical section of the code is the section which works on the common resource, and the remainder section is whenever the work with the common resource is done, then the process exits its critical section and will go to the remaining of the code, that is called as a remainder of the code. Okay, so the code which is outside the critical section. So whenever the process P is entered, at that time in a continuous loop or in a while one loop, okay, so first of all the test set instruction is executed. What we were talking about, the hardware approach of the mutual exclusion. The hardware approach of the mutual exclusion, there are two things. Either you can disable the interrupts, or you can use the special kinds of machine instructions to achieve the mutual exclusion. So in this case your test set instruction is getting used, right? So what that test set is doing, it is simply checking the status of the bolt variable. So if the bolt variable is already 1, that means your resource printer is getting used by, or it is in use by some kind of process. So your bolt variable will be having a non-zero value. And if it is having a non-zero value, we know that what is the test set. If it is having a non-zero value, earlier slide, if it is having a non-zero value, then what that test set will be returning, it will be returning false. If that particular bolt variable will be returning, here that test set will be given the parameter value as bolt, right? So I is nothing but bolt here. So if your bolt is 0, then the true will be returned by the test set. If the bolt is 1, then false will be written by the test set. Okay, so in this case, if the bolt is 0, then what will be returned? True will be returned. If the bolt is 1, then the false will be returned. That means your printer is already in use. If false is returned, then not equal to or not of false, okay, will become true, and this while loop will be executed. Okay, so this is important thing to understand. It is not of test set bolt. So if your bolt is 1, then it will be evaluated to not of 1 equals to, or if it is 1, then what your uh, uh, test set condition is, test set instruction is returning. If it is 1, then it is returning false. If it is 0, then only it is returning true. So if your bolt is 1, then your test set will return false, or it will return 0. For example, Then if it is 0, it will become not of 0 or not of false or true, and then the while loop will satisfy the condition, and then it will not do anything. So it will be continuously busy checking the status of bolt. Okay, so how you are achieving all this? You are achieving all this by using a single instruction which is called as a test and set. So test and set means test the bolt variable, right? If it is returning you the true value, okay, come out of it while loop and go into the critical section. Test the bolt variable. If it is returning true value, then come out of the while loop and enter into the critical section. If it is returning true value, that means the resource is free, and then you can work on that resource by entering into the, you means your process can go into the critical section for serving that resource or for using that resource. And after that, it has to make that bolt equals to 0. Bolt equals to 0 simply means that your resource is again free. Okay, and there is the remainder of the code, the rest of the code which is not using the resource, and then the process ends here, right? So this is your hardware approach for the mutual exclusion by using the special kind of instruction which is called as a test and set instruction. Now there is again the same category, the hardware approach for the mutual exclusion by using the special kind of instructions, but this time the instruction is your exchange instruction. In the exchange instruction, what I told you, the test and set instruction as well as this exchange instruction are kind of atomic instructions. Atomic means they are indivisible. Indivisible means whenever you write exchange, okay, for example, in this particular code, exchange is written as an instruction. So whatever is behind that exchange instruction, this complete subroutine is going to get executed in a single instruction cycle, and no one can divide the execution of all these instructions. So that is the meaning of atomicity or the indivisible nature of these instructions, right? So exchange instruction, like your test and set instruction, it provides you the mutual exclusion. It is the atomic instruction, indivisible instruction. So there is a complete subroutine behind that particular exchange instruction. First of all, we will see what is in that particular subroutine of the exchange instruction. If you see the subroutine, there are two arguments, the register value and the memory value. So some kind of memory value and the register value, they are being swapped in this particular exchange function or the instruction. So there is some temporary variable. The temporary variable has been assigned the memory location, memory variable value, and that memory variable value is given the register value, and the register value is given the value which was earlier than the memory. So these two values will be simply exchanged by this particular exchange instruction. So let us see the use of that exchange instruction in our code for the process. Now we want as whenever any resource is being used by the process P, the other processes should be they should not be allowed to enter into their critical sections of the code to use the same resource. So in this case, now what has been done is, again there is a constant integer n equals to number of processes. There is one more variable bolt, and that bolt variable is nothing but like a flag for protecting the resource. If your resource is printer, then your bolt variable will be initially 0. Of course, you know the execution starts from main. So whenever your bolt is 0, it means that your printer is free, and whenever your bolt is non-zero, it means that your printer is busy. Okay, so in this case, again your main function is responsible for beginning of all that particular processes, P1, P2, P3 as per the availability of those processes. Whenever any process starts the execution, what will happen is it will get executed by using this particular function in which there is some integer I. So suppose P2 process is getting executed, so that I value will be equals to 2. Okay, so there is some kind of variable called as key I with that process. So suppose second process is getting executed, that key 2 will become 1. Okay, this is a kind of flag which tells your process that now this particular key 2 value is 1. This is a kind of flag simply. So P2, as we know, P2 is getting executed, it wants the printer resource. So according to that P2 process, your key 2 variable will become 1. Okay, we are into the process called as a P2. So in a while one loop, what is happening is exchange instruction is getting executed. Exchange instruction for key 2 and bolt, these two things are getting executed. Now try to understand, if the bolt variable is 0, if none of the other process is getting is using that particular printer, In that case, your bolt variable will be 0. And what is your key to variable? It is 1. So these two things will get exchanged. That means bolt's 0 value will come in key 2 and key 2's 1 value will come into the bolt. Right? So these two things will get exchanged. Right? So in this case, what is happening is bolt's value is given into key 2 and that key 2 variable is checked. If your key 2 becomes 0, what is the meaning of key 2 becoming 0? Key 2 means your swapped value of the bolt variable. Bolt variable is like a flag for the resource. So if your key 2 is now 0, it means simply that your resource is free. If your key 2 is not 0, it means that your resource is engaged. In that case, you have to you have to wait for this particular resource to get free by simply checking that key 2 variable again and again. So this is called as busy waiting or busy spinning concept in the mutual exclusion provided by your special type of hardware instructions. So what is happening is simply the value of bolt is taken into key 2. That key 2's value 1 is shifted into bolt, and what is the purpose of shifting that key 2's value 1 into the bolt? Once that bolt value is 0, then this particular loop will come out of while, or the control will come out of the while loop and the process will be free to enter into its critical section. But at that time that key 2 will be shifted to the bolt, okay, telling the other processes that now the bolt variable is non-zero. That means that particular resource is engaged with some kind of process. Right. So this exchange instruction, it is simply exchanging the value of key 2, which is 1, with bolt equals to 0. If your bolt is free, that means the resource is free. At that time, your key 2 not equals to 0, this condition will go false and the process will enter into its critical section. I am again repeating, critical section is that section of the code for the process which is using the common resource. Okay, after its working with the common resource is completed, that process comes out of the critical section of the code. Okay, so once the process comes out of its critical section of the code, then the bolt variable will be made again 0 in order to tell the other processes that now your particular resource, common resource, is available for the use. Then there is a remainder of the code, okay, which is not working on that particular resource, right? So this is all about your process code. And as you know, the main function is giving birth to all these processes depending on their availability, right? So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the mutual exclusion hardware approach? Okay, so this particular hardware approach is applicable to the number of processes, any number of processes on a single processor system or a multiprocessor system. It is simple and easy to verify. Okay, and it can be used to support the multiple critical section or multiple common resources. And there are some disadvantages which you can go through. Busy waiting or busy spinning, as we had seen that unless and until that resource is free, that code will be stuck up in that while loop. So busy spinning or busy waiting consumes a lot of processor time. Here the starvation and deadlocks, these two things are possible in this particular hardware approach. Thank you for watching this video. Thanks a lot.